The ring was never meant for her finger, and the words were never meant to leave his mouth, but in front of an entire office cafeteria, with his little daughter watching from the doorway and his heart breaking in silence, Armen Vale accidentally looked at his colleague and said the one sentence that changed both their lives forever. He asked her to marry him. And when the room froze, when every spoon stopped, when every whisper died, Naira Sloan did not laugh, did not blush, did not run. She simply looked at him with calm, steady eyes and said yes. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet kind of love that arrives when life has almost broken someone, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts. Your support helps stories like this reach people who still believe that even wounded hearts can find their way home. Armen Vale had spent the last 4 years learning how to be both father and mother to his 7-year-old daughter, Mira. Every morning began before sunrise in their small apartment above a closed bakery, where he packed her lunch, braided her hair badly, burned toast more often than he admitted, and smiled as if exhaustion had not settled permanently behind his eyes. His wife had left when Mira was 3, not with cruelty, not with screaming, but with a quiet note on the kitchen counter saying she was not built for this life. Since then, Armen had carried fatherhood like a sacred weight, never complaining, never asking for pity, never allowing himself to want anything beyond rent paid, food on the table, and Mira's laughter still alive in their home. He worked as a project coordinator at a modest architecture firm downtown, the kind of place where people drank too much coffee, complained about deadlines, and pretended not to notice who was falling apart. Armen was good at his job, reliable in the way broken people often become reliable, because chaos had already taken enough from them. But everyone knew he kept to himself. He ate lunch at his desk, skipped office parties, and always left at exactly 4 because Mira's school pickup waited for no meeting. The only person who never made him feel guilty for it was Naira Sloan, the firm's senior designer, a woman with quiet grace, sharp intelligence, and a calm presence that made even tense rooms breathe easier. She never asked too many questions. She simply noticed things. Naira noticed when Armen's shirt cuffs were frayed and quietly left a tailor's discount card near the copier. She noticed when Mira had a school art project and sent leftover colored paper from the studio. She noticed when Armen came in pale after a sleepless night and placed a cup of tea beside his keyboard without making it a performance. To everyone else, she was reserved. To Armen, she was dangerous in a way he could not explain, because kindness from a woman like her made him remember parts of himself he had buried. It made him remember that he was not only a father, not only a provider, not only a man surviving one day at a time. He was still someone who could be seen. The trouble began on a bright Tuesday afternoon, when Mira's school called to say she had a fever and nobody else was listed as emergency contact. Armen rushed out of a client meeting so quickly he left his laptop open and his notes scattered across the conference table. By the time he returned 2 hours later with Mira wrapped in his jacket and sleeping against his shoulder, the office was buzzing. The biggest client of the year was coming the next day, and the proposal deck had crashed. Armen tried to apologize, but the senior manager, Brent Halwick, used the moment like a weapon. In front of the team, he suggested that maybe single fathers with complicated personal lives were not suited for high-pressure accounts. The words landed harder than Armen expected. He stood there holding Mira, feeling every eye on him, shame burning beneath his skin. He wanted to defend himself, but Mira stirred against his chest, and the fight drained out of him. Then Naira spoke from across the room, calm but firm, saying the revised files were already backed up, the client materials were ready, and Armen's work had carried the project for weeks. She did not raise her voice, but somehow Brent went silent. Armen looked at her then, really looked, and something inside him cracked open with gratitude so deep it frightened him. The next day, the presentation succeeded. The client praised the model, the budget, the timeline, and especially Armen's coordination. Everyone celebrated in the cafeteria afterward with cake, paper cups, and awkward office applause. Mira, still recovering but better, sat near the doorway coloring quietly because school had let out early and Armin had no babysitter. She watched her father smile in that careful way he did when he was trying not to feel too much. Naira stood beside him, accepting congratulations with the same composed warmth she always carried. For once, Armin felt almost light. Then Mira walked up to him holding a tiny plastic ring from her toy box, the kind she carried around because she liked pretending every day had a ceremony in it. She tugged his sleeve and whispered that he should thank Miss Naira properly because she had saved him. Armin laughed softly, distracted by noise and applause, and bent down to take the toy ring from Mira's hand. At that exact moment, someone from the team shouted for a picture. Armin turned, still holding the ring, still smiling, still overwhelmed, and Naira stepped close beside him. His mind was full of gratitude, embarrassment, pressure, and the strange warmth of someone standing beside him when others had stepped away. And then, like a thought escaping before he could catch it, he said it. He looked at Naira, held up the toy ring without realizing what it looked like, and said that maybe he should just marry the woman who kept saving his life. The cafeteria went silent. A laugh began somewhere and died instantly. Armin's smile vanished as the meaning of his own words hit him. His face drained of color. He tried to speak, tried to explain, tried to turn it into a joke, but Mira's hopeful eyes were on him, the whole office was watching, and Naira was standing very still. For 3 seconds, Armin thought he had destroyed everything. He thought Naira would step back, embarrassed, offended, maybe angry. He thought she would never bring tea to his desk again, never smile at Mira, never look at him without pity. But Naira only looked at the small plastic ring, then at Mira, then at Armin. Her expression softened in a way no one else seemed to understand. And in a voice so calm it sounded like she had been expecting the question for years, she said yes. The room erupted in shocked laughter, applause, and confused cheering, but Armin heard none of it clearly. He stared at her as if she had spoken in another language. Naira leaned closer, still composed, and quietly told him to breathe. Then she slipped the toy ring onto her finger like it was not a joke at all. Mira clapped with delight, believing fully in the magic of the moment. Armin wanted the floor to open beneath him. He wanted to apologize, to undo it, to protect Naira from the office gossip already forming around them. But her calm yes had placed a shield over him, over Mira, over the humiliation that could have swallowed them. By the end of the day, the whole office had turned the accident into a story. Some people teased kindly, others whispered with sharp curiosity, and Brent watched from a distance with irritation in his jaw. Armin avoided Naira until she found him near the elevators, one hand gripping his bag, the other holding Mira's backpack. He apologized so many times the words began to tremble. Naira listened patiently, then told him she knew it was accidental. She said she had only said yes because she saw panic in his eyes and hope in Mira's, and she could not let either of them be crushed for everyone's entertainment. That should have made things simple, but it did not. Because after that day, something changed. Not in loud romantic ways, not in dramatic confessions, but in quiet adjustments. Naira began joining Armin and Mira for lunch at the small park across from the office when the weather was clear. Mira began saving her best drawings for Miss Naira, who said yes. Armin began laughing more, then catching himself as if laughter were a debt he could not afford. Naira never pushed him. She simply stayed close enough for him to feel less alone and far enough for him not to run. But happiness frightened Armin more than hardship. Hardship was familiar. He knew how to survive empty cupboards, late bills, fevers, school forms, loneliness, and judgment. He did not know how to survive someone choosing him gently. One afternoon, while Mira chased pigeons under the bright sun, Naira asked him why he always looked guilty when he was happy. Armin tried to deny it, but the question found the locked room inside him. He admitted that when Mira's mother left, he had decided needing someone was dangerous. He had promised himself never to let his daughter watch another person walk away. Naira did not answer quickly. She looked at Mira, then told him that some people leave because they were never strong enough to stay, but that did not mean everyone else should be punished for their weakness. Those words stayed with him. They followed him through workdays and grocery lines, through bedtime stories and quiet dishes in the sink. He began to notice Naira not just as the woman who helped him, but as a woman with her own hidden sadness. He noticed how she avoided calls from her father, how she grew quiet when colleagues talked about weddings, how she always gave others comfort but rarely accepted any. One Saturday morning, when the firm hosted a family charity event in the courtyard, Armin found her arranging donation boxes alone. The sun was warm, children were painting cardboard signs, and Mira was helping stack books. For the first time, Naira told him that she had once been engaged to a man who loved her ambition only until it outgrew his pride. He had left a month before the wedding and told everyone she was too cold to love. Since then, she had trained herself to be calm because people trusted calm women and feared emotional ones. Armin listened, ashamed of how little he had understood. He had thought her calm yes was an act of mercy for him. Now he realized it had also been courage from someone who knew public embarrassment, abandonment, and the cruel weight of being misunderstood. In that sunny courtyard, among children's laughter and cardboard signs, their accidental proposal became something else. Not a joke, not a rumor, but a strange doorway neither of them had expected to find. The challenge came when Brent, jealous of Armin's rising reputation and irritated by Naira's loyalty, began spreading the idea that Armin was using office sympathy to get ahead. He hinted that Naira's support had become personal and unprofessional. The whispers grew sharper. Armin heard them near the printer, in hallways, behind half-closed doors. His old shame returned with force. He started pulling away from Naira, eating at his desk again, leaving messages unanswered, telling himself he was protecting her. Mira noticed first. Children always notice the silences adults pretend are normal. She asked why Miss Naira did not come to the park anymore, and Armin said work was busy, though the lie tasted bitter. Naira did not chase him. For 2 weeks, she let him hide. Then, on a clear Thursday afternoon, during a staff review meeting, Brent made one comment too many. He implied that Armin's personal situation had made certain colleagues emotionally compromised. Armin stared at the table, ready to swallow the insult like he had swallowed so many others. But Naira stood. Calmly, without trembling, she placed a folder of project records on the table and explained exactly how Armin's work had saved 3 accounts, reduced costs, and improved client retention. Then she looked at Brent and said that compassion was not unprofessional, but cruelty disguised as concern certainly was. The room went silent again, just like the day of the accidental proposal. But this time, Armin did not feel humiliated. He felt seen. Not rescued, not pitted, not protected like a helpless man, but defended because the truth deserved a voice. After the meeting, Brent was formally reviewed for misconduct. The office atmosphere shifted. People who had whispered now apologized awkwardly. Armin accepted, but his mind was elsewhere. He found Naira in the courtyard, sunlight falling across her face, and for once he did not begin with an apology. He told her that he had spent years believing love was a risk he had no right to take because he had a daughter to protect. But he was beginning to understand that children did not only learn from who left. They also learned from who stayed. He told her Mira had started drawing 3 people under one roof, and every time he saw those pictures, he felt afraid and grateful at the same time. Naira's eyes filled, though her voice remained steady. She said she never wanted to replace anyone in Mira's life. Armin answered that she already had her own place, and that was what scared him most. Their first real step forward happened not with candles or music, but at a school picnic under a bright afternoon sky. Mira had entered a kite-making contest, and Armin, hopeless with glue, had nearly attached the tail backward. Naira arrived with iced lemonade, fixed the kite, and helped Mira paint a small yellow sun in the corner. When the kite finally rose into the air, Mira shouted that it looked like their family was flying. Armin looked at Naira, expecting fear, but she only smiled through tears. In that moment, he understood that love did not always arrive as thunder. Sometimes it arrived as steady hands holding a spool of string while a child laughed beneath the sun. Months passed. The accidental office proposal became an old joke, but inside Armin, a real question began to grow. He saved slowly, not for an expensive ring, but for one that meant something. He chose a simple silver band with a small blue stone because Mira said it looked like morning. He waited for the right moment, not because he doubted his love, but because he wanted the question to belong fully to Naira this time, not to panic, not to gossip, not to an accident. He asked her on a Sunday afternoon in the community garden where Mira had planted marigolds with her school group. The sky was clear, the soil smelled warm, and bees moved lazily between flowers. Mira stood beside him holding a paper sign she had made herself, though the letters were uneven and the heart was much too large. Armin's hands shook as he told Naira that the first time he proposed, he had done it by mistake, but her yes had saved him from shame. This time, he was asking with a whole heart, not because she had saved him, but because she had taught him he was allowed to live again. Naira covered her mouth, tears slipping down her face, and for once her calm broke beautifully. Still, when she answered, her voice carried the same steadiness that had changed everything from the beginning. She said yes. Their wedding was small, held in the same garden during the day, surrounded by sunlight, flowers, co-workers who had become friends, and a little girl in a yellow dress who carried the rings as if she were holding the moon. Armin cried before Naira even reached him. Naira laughed softly through her tears. Mira stood between them after the vows and wrapped one arm around each of them, declaring with the seriousness only a child can have that this time the proposal was not an accident. Everyone laughed, but Armin held his daughter and his wife close, knowing she was right. Near the end of that beautiful day, Armin looked around at the people gathered there and thought about how close he had come to choosing loneliness forever. He thought about all the mornings he had survived instead of lived, all the times he had mistaken fear for responsibility, all the moments kindness had knocked and he had almost refused to open the door. Naira squeezed his hand as if she understood every unspoken word. And for the first time in years, Armin did not feel like a man abandoned by the past. He felt like a man welcomed by the future. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who still believes in second chances, comment your favorite moment, and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts. Sometimes your support becomes the reason another heart finds hope again. Before the ending, please comment a calm yes can change a broken life if you believe love can arrive softly and still heal everything. And from that day forward, whenever someone at the office joked about the accidental proposal, Armin only smiled. Because the world thought he had made a mistake in front of everyone, but he knew the truth. Sometimes life does not ruin you with accidents. Sometimes it uses them to place the right person exactly where your heart was too afraid to ask.